Well, good morning all, and I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to our Huron County Council meeting this morning. Welcome to all members of County Council, our staff that will provide us facts and information so we can make decisions in the best interest of the Corporation of the County of Huron and our 61,000 residents. Also, welcome to all of our presenters today. We look forward to your presentations, to the members of the public that are joining us, and also to the media in attendance this morning. I would like to start by indicating the council meetings are available live streamed through Zoom, and recordings may be posted online on Huron County's YouTube channel. You may be seen or heard as part of these broadcasts, and your name, comments, and/or presentation materials will become part of the public record. I would first like to welcome Sandra Weber. Sitting in our CAO's chair today. Sandra is very, very capable and happy to have her in this capacity today. Since our last meeting, under my remarks, I have attended with our staff some civic classes throughout Huron County, in South Huron, St. Anne's, and in Goderich, with the purpose of having a dialogue with the students on municipal politics, being the politics closest to the people. And it is always great to have staff joining also because of their expertise, and we have that opportunity for interaction with the students. And it seemed, I would suggest, to be very, very beneficial. It was very enlightening, and the questions that they posed were very pertinent to what we're dealing with and our level of government and our upper levels of government. Van and I also attended the Lambton County banquet that was held last Friday night, and Lambton County is celebrating their 150th anniversary this year, so there will be various activities through the year in Lambton. Also, last week I attended the visitation for Larry Adams, who was a former CAO of Huron County who passed away, and I offered our condolences on behalf of Huron County Council and all of our staff. With that, as indicated at the outset, Sandra Weber, our Director of Planning and Development, will be added to the closed session. And with that amendment, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended, and that would be Councillors Bazinet and P. Heffer. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Does anyone have a declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof to indicate at this time of any agenda item today? And I'll go first to Councillor Noel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Whereas I, Leah Noel, have a pecuniary interest with respect to bylaw 2024-028 to authorize entering into a contract with BM Ross, I therefore declare a pecuniary interest. And the general nature of my interest is that my daughter is an employee of BM Ross.
Thank you for that, Councillor Noel, and duly noted with our clerk. Is there anyone else that has a pecuniary interest to indicate at this time? And seeing none, I thank you. We do have the minutes of the 20th of March for approval, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder as circulated, and that's Councillor Alvin McClellan, seconded by Councillor Becker. Are there any questions on these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to be adopted as circulated, and that is carried. Thank you. Under delegations, petitions, and presentations today, it is a pleasure for me and a privilege to welcome three individuals from the Huron County Demonstration Farm to present the annual report, and that would be Wim Fettis, Mary Valise, and Rick Kustra on behalf of the Huron County Soil and Crop Improvement Association and the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority. Welcome, and we look forward to your presentation to us at this time.
Good morning, Warden, Council. My name is Wim Fettis. I am the president of Huron County Soil and Crop Improvement Association, and we're happy to have an invitation to do a presentation here. When Dave Cullen asked us back in the fall if we could do that, we were very honored to do so. Huron County Soil and Crop is also very pleased with the lease of the land of Huron View and the cooperation with Huron County. We have made some changes in the way of farming over the years at Huron View, as we do strip till, no-till practices in combination with cover crops. Our goal is to show the farmers of Huron County how to farm in a way that preserves good soil health, clean water, no soil erosion, and no water runoff without any compromising of yields. To have no yield loss, sorry. We are trying to set a good example for other farmers in Huron County that all of this is possible. With us having the use of Huron View Demo Farm, we are able to show not only the farmers of Huron County, but also other organizations and conservation authorities that all of this is possible. Right now, I would like to introduce Rick Kutstra. He's our Huron View Demo Farm manager, and he will give us a presentation on what has been done over the last couple of years at Huron View. Rick?
Thanks, Wim. Okay, thanks, Wim. Mr. Warden and Council, pleased to be here. As presentations go, we don't do these every day, so I'm a little nervous up here. Sometimes to choose the right words is hard. I was at the eye doctor the other day, and she said to me, she says, "Well, Rick, you've had a few birthdays." And I laughed. I thought, well, what a nice way to say it. And then rather than telling me I'm old, she said, "You've had a few birthdays." So choosing the right words is an art. We've been 5 years at Huron View now. Or I've been 5 years with the project, and every year it gets better in there, and every year it gets more of a more fun, more interesting. It started off as a land use and tiling, and what's the best tiling, and we're still there. We're trying to figure out what the best way to tile is, what the best cover cropping method is. Strip till, no till, but we're slowly moving into water and water management, and how farmers and a town or a village or a city can blend together and live together in good harmony, where the city can thrive and the farm can thrive as well without any undue controversy. We're realizing that water needs to be managed, and how we do that as farmers and as society. So heading over into our yields are tending to improve, and why is that? Well, it's the management, it's the no-till, it's the strip till, it's the cover crops. We're getting really good seed. We're getting really good chemistry. Like, there's a lot going on in there. It's good land. I know it looks like an undesirable because it's slopey. We're very pleased to have it from the county. It's a wonderful little property. We've planted grass. We've made walkways. We've made an entertainment area for people to come and see crops and see erosion controls. We built about 10 riprap areas so that when the water flows, it's slowed down. We went from a 3-foot gully in the middle of the farm to no soil movement within 3 years. That's due to tile. That's due to the stone or the riprap slowing it down. That's due to no-till. So this is a good example in 2022, the COVID year, I believe. We were anticipating not being able to buy any fertilizer, not being able to buy our supplies. So we decided to use the cover crop as a nutrient source and planted directly into it. And that's what you see there. So we strip tilled it, and we planted directly into it as well, and ended up with a reasonable yield. So I wouldn't run out and do that again, but it was something that we thought that we would be into because of a lack of supplies for inputs. And there we are last year planting corn on that's strip tillage. So you can see the little berm, the dark zone. We plant right on top of that. Yields last fall, we got 200 bushel of dry corn in that farm. There's an overview of the tiling project from 2019. Looks a lot different now. That's all been cleaned up and leveled and shaped and grass planted so this is managing water and controlled drainage, and I'm going to turn it over to Mary Valles from the Asable. She's going to talk for a little while. Thanks.
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Warden and visitors. I'm just going to explain a little bit about the water piece of the Huron View demonstration farm. The intention of the project was to evaluate the effectiveness of different tiling methods. And I'm just going to ask you to flip back to the last slide so we can have a quick look at those methods. So you'll see in the background a section that was not tiled, and a section at the top of the hill that had pattern tile, and then a section at the bottom towards the Bayfield River that is contour tiling with control gates. And so the knowledge is that we will have more water leave the field through subsurface drainage than before you drain. And so one of the intentions is to see if the best practice of the contour control gates will slow down that water and that water loss. So Rick is correct with the surface water. We've seen a complete reduction in the surface water erosion with the tiling and some of the riprap features that Rick has mentioned, and some of the other practices that he also talked about with the cover crops, the strip tillage, and those practices really reduce the surface water erosion. It's practically negligible after the tiling went in. But the flip side of that is there is more water leaving the field through tile drainage. And one best practice to evaluate that we're evaluating here is the contour control gates. A second one is a wetland. Today, I'm just going to talk about the control gates and some of the efforts that we're looking at to evaluate this practice. So if you go to the next slide, it just shows the structure of the control gates at the end of those contours. And we're measuring the amount of water leaving the fields. So both the no tile field, the regular pattern tile field, and the contour control gate field. And we're measuring the quality during rain events and just when there's water flow as well. So that's what that garbage can looking item is there. It's a automatic water sampler. Next slide, please. So this slide you can't read. I'm just showing it because it's showing the amount of water leaving the pattern fields versus the contour control fields. And I've circled the areas where, and this is how much water is leaving per month. It's a runoff coefficient. And I've circled the areas where that number is greater than 1. And that just means that there's more water leaving the field than fell from the sky. So that is an important finding, and we found that in the bottom field, the one that's closer to the river, where we have the control gates. So it's very hard to compare that as a best practice when there's probably a greater groundwater influence. So that brings me to my next slide, which is to partner with the University of Guelph and researchers there that are beginning to piece together the groundwater conditions so that we can better understand groundwater, water movement, water transport in these fields, and begin to account for the differences that groundwater is making so that we can account for the differences in the best practice, which is the contour control gates. I'm sorry, that's a bit confusing, but that's essentially how much effort is required to answer some of these questions. And working with the University of Guelph gives us a really great opportunity to show and demonstrate the collaborative nature for these kinds of projects. So not only are we collaborating the Conservation Authority with the Soil and Crop organization, so the farming organization, and the county with the rental deferral, and the University of Guelph, some of these researchers. So this is just a really great example of the kind of different perspectives that are needed to answer a complex question that we had set out to answer in the first place with, can we control water better with tile systems? So what they're beginning to find there is that indeed there is more finer substrate, subsurface substrate material that is preventing maybe some, like being a bit of a barrier to the groundwater, and so that's staying on the surface. So we're seeing the tiles are intercepting that. So that's something we're going to have to account for going forward as we begin to address some of those questions. The next slide, please. The other thing that we've done last year, so some of the work that was done in the University of Guelph was done last year. The other update from last year is the installation in one of the tiles for a flow meter. So we have ways of measuring flow, and this is what we do frequently in rivers, is we will have what is called a level logger. It's basically a pressure transducer, and the amount of water on top gives us a depth. We go and take a cross section of a river and we get the flows and we convert that to the discharge. In the tile, we can't do that, but we have little level loggers, and with the slope of the tile, we can begin to calculate the discharge. So it's sort of a calculated value, but because we want to be really, really exact and precise as best as possible, we put in an actual flow meter in these tiles. So this is a innovation that wouldn't be very many other places, if any other place in Ontario, and that will be an opportunity for us to double check and verify some of the numbers coming out of the amount of water leaving the fields. So that was a great installation, and the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, so yet another collaboration it's their resources that put that in. So we look forward to getting some more precise measurements from that spot. Next slide, please. The other thing I want to mention is that although we have the bigger project of trying to look at the best management practice of the tiling, we also have this opportunity, because we have the field instrumented in such a way, to look over time at different practices. So Rick mentioned earlier the 6-foot cover crop that he directly planted into. So we looked at the water quality leaving the field when we had that 6-foot cover crop growing over the winter versus a more minuscule, I guess I could say, cover crop that's planted later in the season that maybe didn't have a time to take off. And so the next slide just shows some of the water quality results of that comparison. And you can see here, I have the two fields, so that's really related to the tiling, but you can see the area where there was the deeper overwinter cover. The 6-foot overwinter cover has much lower concentrations of the nitrate compared to the more or less robust cover crop that followed the beans. Okay, the next slide, please. This is an opportunity for Rick and Wim to come back up and speak to some of the other ongoings of last year.
Move the mic back up. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so on that slide is I'm sure, or I think most of you saw that picture in the paper, but we didn't think it would go as far and wide as it did, but it did. So we gave some money that from our corn sales back to the community through food grains, and this went to the distribution center for food in Huron County, and that's what you see there. So that was $5,000, and it was good. We were congratulated on that, and people really liked that. So we'll try and do that again. Is that the last slide? Well, So there I am planting in, that's not 6 feet, it's probably more like 8. And that worked out really well. That was back to water management, excuse me, and soil management. We had no erosion. We had a reasonable yield, and it worked out really well. We can't always do that, but if you grow wheat, you can certainly establish a nice cover crop after wheat. The other two, the soybeans and the corn, of course, late in the season, and being Canada, we do have we are challenged to get anything started late in the fall. So it's always a challenge. So yes, before I say thanks, let's just get back to water management for a minute. I want to leave it in your minds that how to cooperate with a town and how to cooperate with farmers. You know, there's water that is in a village or a town or even at Huron View that is excess water that runs off the lawn, runs off the parking lots. We can actually use that in our farming practice. Ultimately, if you farm next to a golf course, the runoff from a golf course is, of course, the nitrogen value, the phosphorus, the potassium values there are pretty high. Goes right into our water. Wouldn't it be cool to grab that water, bring it back into farming, and have the plants use that up rather than putting it into the lake? And that's kind of where we're heading with water management. And we learn that here in View. We've got the ultimate demo farm. And so thank you very much, Council, Mr. Warden, for all that.
You're more than welcome. This is an amazing presentation and tremendous leadership on behalf of what you're doing and Huron County. I'm going to open it up to County Council. Any questions or comments? And I'm going to go first to past Warden McClellan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'd like to direct this to Mari. I'm really interested about your differentials in your water numbers for in and out. Is there any guess on whether it's just an underground source, whether it's just the water table height because you are close to a waterway there, or are you actually just starting to draw water off the neighboring farm properties to have that increased number over and above what the rainfall was?
Well, I think I could provide you an educated guess, but I feel that with the University of Guelph doing the research there, I feel like they are going to be able to be more precise with their answers. It could be all of the things you mentioned. It's really hard for me to say with a lot of confidence which one of those factors might be more relevant. It could be a number of different things. And I think the really important take home here is that opportunity to begin to study this and understand this. I know it's only in one place, but at least it's a start, and it's a place that, you know, we do farm land like this. And so when we begin to understand things a little bit better, it sort of takes away the, you know, people don't, it takes away the black and white decisions. It kind of gets us more into some of the management, that gray, once we begin to understand the kinds of things that might be contributing to some of the water loss.
Good with that. Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? I'd be surprised if past Warden again didn't have one. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warden. Just in case everyone isn't aware, it was back in 2014 when the Warden of the day, Joe Steffler, came up with the idea of a demonstration farm. And the goal back then was exactly what has ended up happening, to demonstrate things that are applicable and feasible on a farm. We all know how important agriculture is in Huron County and how important Huron County agriculture is to the province. And I'm just really, really proud to have been part of this. During my tenure as warden is when the drainage project went into place, and there was a lot of interest from across the province. But we want to be on the leading edge, and we want to make sure that the practices are demonstrated to farmers, because farmers learn better from other farmers than they do from ministry people and the likes. So there's that trust element there when it's local farmers doing this. And I just want to extend my thanks to the Soil and Crop Improvement Association. I always challenge them to come up with innovative things, and there are a lot of deep thinkers on that committee that come up with these projects that I would have never came up with. And I just want to tip my hat to them. Thanks.
Thank you very much for those valuable comments. Any further questions or comments from any members of County Council? Councillor Anderson, please.
Thank you, Warden. I'm just wondering, next week we have our county bus tour. Is this going to be one of the stops on it?
I will defer to our staff for a response to that, please, and thank you.
Through you, Mr. Warden, we are starting and ending at the Jacob Memorial Building, which is the Huron View property. So I think we could probably, have a little bit further discussion about it, or if anyone wants to afterwards take a walk back there, we could certainly do that after we get back.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that question and suggestion. And I would like to indicate that years ago, the provincial government legislated all counties to have a county home and a county farm. And Huron County is one of the few that still own their county farm. Many others have been liquidated for development. And having the county farm, and with the leadership and innovation that our presenters are demonstrating, puts Huron County in great stead as a leader in this field, among many others. So on behalf of Huron County Council, thank you very much, each and every one, for your commitment, your passion to leadership at the demonstration farm. Thank you very much for presenting to us today. So with that, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation by Wim Fettis, Rick Kustra, and Mary Valise as presented for information. And that would be Councillor Noel, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All in favour of this motion? And that is carried, and thank you again. Do any councillors have any comments that they would like to make at this time under councillor comments? So I'm going to go first to Councillor Becker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just a thank you to Councillor Finch and South Huron Council for recognizing Jim Hoffman and myself for the 50 years of service to the community. Thanks to County Council and staff for all the congratulations. And I can tell you, we've had congratulations right across the world. I had a niece in New Zealand that reached out to me. And another couple, they were on a cruise in South America. So social media does reach out. But thanks should also go to the families of the firefighters that support the guys going out the door at all hours. Missing meals, everything else, hockey games. But thank you again for everybody. But council, thank your firefighters at their stations. They're the guys, they're our future. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Let's show a round of applause to John. You're very deserving of this recognition, Councillor Becker. Any other members of council? P. Heifer, please.
Yes, thank you, Warden. I just want to thank the county for allowing, and Jeff Horseman for allowing us to make use of your emergency coordinator, Chad Krager. He's coming in as our part-time interim fire chief, and we just, as a municipality, appreciate that offer that you provided for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for acknowledging that, and you're more than welcome. That's what we do. Cooperation works both ways, so thank you for that. Past Warden Ginn, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make County Council aware that tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, Central Huron's having the grand opening of the what we call the sculpture garden, and it's a public art display, but more than what it is for Central Huron, this art was created by high school students from across Huron County, and it's metal sculptures. So many skilled trades are involved in this. I'd really like to see some people come out just to recognize the students for the work that they've done. And we know we're short of skilled trades. The welders are a huge shortage. So this is a way to give them some recognition and introduce them to the skilled trades that, we're in desperate need of. So just want to make County Council aware of that.
Thank you for that. And that is at 2 p.m. tomorrow in Clinton.
That's correct. That's at Millennium Park, which is just east of the main intersection.
Getting that information, I was just like pulling teeth. Thank you for that. No, it's great. And so any that can be in attendance, it would be welcomed and appreciated. Any further questions or comments from County Council at this time? And if not, thank you very much for that. We do have our consent agenda that encompasses items 8.1 through 8.8. Is there anything that anyone would like to pull for further discussion? And if not, I would entertain a mover and a seconder that items 8.1 through 8.8 be approved with actions as noted. Councillor Van Stone and Councillor Harding, all in favor of the motion. And that is carried. Thank you. It is also a pleasure for me to welcome Dave Pullen to present to us today on the forest conservation update. We talk about passion. Dave is very passionate about our forests throughout Huron County, and we look forward to your presentation to County Council this morning. Dave, welcome.
Good morning, Warden McNeil, council, colleagues, and members of the general public. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, the same morning as the soil and crop crew. I see them regularly. We can go to the next slide and you'll see a picture of them right off the hop here. That's Mary and Rick. My operations for forestry are based out of the back end of Huron View at the shop there. And so I have the pleasure of seeing this crew in action on a very regular basis. And I can tell you it's incredible the number of people that have been coming through there and tours. And that's Rick and Mary last summer giving a tour to a fairly large group, actually. I think there were 20 some people that day. And it's really good to see that happening there. I'm just going to go through quickly some forestry highlights. We had 108 notices of intent filed last year for commercial timber harvest. You see those reports coming through each month, and we still break them down by good forestry practice versus other. And I want to just expand on that a little bit. Good forestry practice is when a professional forester is involved. People are getting professional tree marking. They're tendering out to various reputable buyers. And people who are using those services tend to do very well on selling timber. There are a lot of situations, probably another third right now, where there's small harvests of dead and dying ash. And quite often those are done without a forester and are relatively straightforward cuts. Then there's another third where people could probably really benefit from having some, in many cases, having some good advice from a forester. And often though, a logger might be working next door and it seems very convenient. And so it seems like an easy sale, but quite often I find that people could do a lot better if they did more homework when they were selling timber. And of course, once we receive a notice of intent, I don't give any more advice on timber selling because we wouldn't want to impact any agreement that a landowner had with a logger. So I do give out a tremendous amount of advice in advance to people. And we maintain a list of foresters who are working in the county. And as you all know, we provide a very good incentive through the Huron Clean Water Project to offset the cost of that service for landowners. As far as the county forests go, we did not do any harvesting in last year. We do have the Roger tract near Auburn marked for an improvement harvest, and we anticipate the revenue from that will be probably in excess of $40,000. Scheduling of timber harvests is getting really difficult, and we're actually planning a couple more harvests of ash in 2 other tracts further north, and we're probably going to put them all together and try to do that harvesting over this year and next year. And when I say scheduling, you all know what the winter was like. It was very difficult for the logging industry, given that there was no frost and very difficult working conditions for them. So we're just taking our time, trying to maximize the price in the markets and really making sure that we're working in good conditions in the county forests. So you see a picture there of a tree planter. That's actually a Sauble Bayfields tree planter. And we did a really cool project in the Arboretum north of the health unit in the old apple orchard at the demo farm. And it's called a Miyawaki forest. And I can tell you it was actually the idea of Alan Willits, the past president of Soil and Crop, who had been looking into this concept. It's a mini forest with high biodiversity and high potential for a lot of bird life and other biodiversity. So we have maybe one of the area's first examples of one of those in the Arboretum now, and it's really so far been a successful project, and it also reduces the amount of mowing needed at the Huron View complex by over half an acre. So I think that's quite significant. I continue to help with weed inspection services and assist a number of the local municipalities and continue to work with ACW on the administration of the ACW Shoreline Preservation Bylaw. And we have some fees associated with that. And we also had another 9,000 plus in GovDeals timber sales, which I think some of you know is one of my side projects. And you can see a cherry tree there that was a standing dead tree along one of our trails. And it doesn't look to be super high quality, but people really like that character now. And that particular log, which was sliced into live edge boards, sold for about $1,000 and traveled about 5 hours to its final buyer. So next slide, please. Just going to give you a quick summary of the Forest Conservation Bylaw in terms of violations. We do have 3 cases before the courts right now. There were multiple charges laid on these 3 sites in 2023, and those charges include owners, directors, contractors, and everybody who was involved. We always try to solve these cases proactively, and efforts are ongoing to do that now. And hopefully I'll have more to report to you when I come back next spring as far as how the result goes on that. I spend a lot of time doing pre-consults to assist people to make sure they're in compliance with the bylaw. And that's really a focus of our forestry program. That picture on the bottom right, that's what a sugar maple or a hard maple tree looks like if it's been snapped off with a high hoe. And if you were to put a caption on that photo, I would suggest maybe unwise use of forest resources. And I never like to see that type of harvesting. And I'm really pleased that the majority of my work is proactive and involved with people trying to do good work in forestry. Next slide, please. Just a few other county forest highlights. We continue to have high usage in the properties. COVID really bumped it up, and I haven't seen much of a slackening off of people getting out and using the properties. And we hear a lot of good feedback on people who are trying to get some nature therapy still, or just wanting a good walk and physical activity. And 9 out of 14 of the county forests are in the new hiking guide. Our trail maintenance activity this year will be focusing on the removal of some of the last dead ash along our trails and making sure we keep them safe. And we also have a roadside pollinator project going, and that's in front of the Stevenson and Adams tracts on Morris Road and Gorey Line. And you can see my colleague Derry there last fall. There was some wildflower seeding happening. And this is a really cool project, and it couldn't happen without the input of Derry and and our environment team, I guess, our 3-person environment team, Rachel, Derry, and I. And Derry's been able to partner with the Canadian Wildlife Federation. It's an excellent partnership. As part of this project, we're managing invasive species along the front of those tracts, including buckthorn, and we're replacing it with native trees and shrubs and adding biodiversity. So I think all around, it's a really great project. And the bottom right corner shows some of the pollinator species that we hope to develop along those frontages. And it's a safe place to do it because it's far away from agricultural fields, and we can kind of get a gauge of the weed pressure and see how it's going to take 2 or 3 years to establish some of these pollinator habitats. Next slide, please. This was a great project, again, in the old apple orchard, as some of us call it, or the Arboretum now at Huron View. And this is an accessible gazebo, and it was made possible through some COVID resiliency funding, federal provincial funding. It was a sister project to the Hayes Tract accessible trail south of Goderich here that I told you about last year. And this project, we had limited funding, and there's no way this project could have happened without the skilled input of both our property services and our public works field staff. And they combined to do all of the concrete work for this project, and they did a beautiful job. 100% of this, the wood in this structure is white pine, sourced from the county forests, and it was all local contractors involved in it, including Diamond Steel Roofing, proudly from Wingham, and JKS Custom Building from Blythe. And so overall, it was a great interdepartmental as well as local project. And you'll be able to, I think some of you are going to be in and out in a few days, and you'll be able to see it if you haven't seen it yet. And there's a couple of really nice accessible picnic tables there now. And we're just looking forward to people for not only on site, but people coming into the site being able to use that area. Next slide, please. And just to recap on the Hayes Tract, that's a 600-foot accessible boardwalk made from local cedar, again with the assistance of our public works crew. That was last year, a year ago fall, that was done, and we're still adding some finishing touches to that project. We have a bridge that was a huge improvement on the Sunshine Creek in the Stevenson Tract, adding a few final touches to that project as well this year. And you see Julie and Lori from our accessibility committee, they're out in the Hayes Tract. They were instrumental in that project being done in a way that is properly accessible. And that's Emma, who was our first forestry and environment student and worked out really well. That's been a major step forward for us in terms of being able to get things done out in the county properties, the county forests. And we already have a student hired for this summer, and I'm really excited. I think she's going to be amazing. So that's been great. Next slide, please. Just sort of a big picture look here. We're kind of, you know, it's interesting. There was this turning point back in the 1940s that I've mentioned before where, you know, we'd cleared all the landscape and a lot of the woodlands were very degraded. And in fact, County Council at the time got really serious about it. They developed a reforestation committee. There was a lot of support in the farm community for that to try to revitalize a lot of our woodlands and connect them again and get the water quality back. Get our soil erosion under control. And we're kind of at a turning point again with losing our ash. We've been working with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority on their forest health study. There's going to be some very concerning stats come out of that about the health of our woodlands. And we have some other things going on that I'm going to mention in a second here. But, you know, we continue to maintain an average forest cover of about 16% and a natural cover of closer to 20% in total. And we have our 14 county forests, which you can see are kind of across the top of the county, where we have a higher forest cover because of our topography there. And we know that all the white in that map is our valuable agricultural soils. And soil health is such a key factor to, improving our water quality, as we've heard this morning. And really, how does that all interact with the natural cover and I like to call it the natural infrastructure, and what is the value of that? And we have some work ongoing to try to determine what that value is. And, I think this natural infrastructure concept is going to be key going forward to not only to some of the climate change solutions, but also a lot of the funding that's coming down to try to help make our landscape more resilient. So I think we're well positioned for some of that. Next slide, please. And this goes back to the days of what was once known as the Agriculture and Reforestation Committee, starting back in the 1940s. And that idea carried through right to the early 1980s, and it became the Agriculture and Property Committee. And it really showed that tight bond between our agricultural industry and the properties that had been reforested, not only by the county, but by individual landowners right across the county and conservation authorities. And there was an ag rep who used to report to that committee, who some of you know, and I know him fairly well too. And he used to come to council or to that committee, and he would often proudly say how the county of Huron outproduces each of the maritime provinces. So when I came here 13 years ago, I took it upon myself to update that graph, and I've just done another update, and I thought you'd be really interested in this. You can see the blue line at the top there, that's us, and you can see how our farm gate receipts continue to go up at a rapid rate. Now, please don't confuse this with net farm income. You all know that things aren't very rosy in the commodity prices right now. However, this is quite incredible, and it shows the vast potential of our agricultural industry. You see on the left, that graph shows each of the maritime provinces at the bottom. But then I expanded this because the only other county that really rivals the output, the farm gate output of Huron County, is Essex. But you really have to go into the numbers, the StatsCan and the OMAFRA numbers, to break this down, because the red line is actually the under glass greenhouse production of Essex County. The green line is everything else. And so you can see that, in this climate where we are really trying to preserve our natural cover and our forest cover, our productivity continues to go up. And I would hazard to say that there's huge potential yet with soil health and some of the groundbreaking work that groups like the Soil and Crop Improvement Association are doing. And one more slide there, the next slide. I'm getting right to the end here. I just wanted to introduce you to somebody called Aldo Leopold. Some of you will know who he was. He was a great American conservationist. If you want a short story on him, there's a video link in the black box there, and you can go and see a trailer for an Emmy Award documentary on him called Green Fire. And he introduced the idea of land ethic. And we're coming to this challenging crossroads again, where we really have to again think about Aldo Leopold's land ethic, which is the idea of looking at all the landscape as a whole, not just the bare agricultural land, not just the wetlands, but looking at how, and the woodlands, but looking at how everything fuses together and the synergy between those landscapes. And the reason I'm bringing this up is we have one of the great challenges now, aside from all the biological challenges like ash borer and invasive species, we have this land value challenge. And we have land that has tripled in value in the last 12 years. And that makes any kind of conservation very challenging. And both Leopold and Edmund Zavitz, who was sort of like our Aldo Leopold, they both said repeatedly that when you have land value increases like this or commodity increases, it's more important than ever to have the protections on some of these natural features and to make sure that we're looking at the big picture, not just the value of bare land. So that's something I wanted to bring up today, and anyone who's interested in looking at Aldo Leopold will find that his ideas are probably as pertinent or more so today than they were back in the 1920s and 30s. Next slide. And this is, I just wanted to give a shout out to my colleagues, Derry and Rachel, who we informally call the Enviro team, myself and those two. And this is a picture of Derry and Rachel, a couple of people from Asabo Bayfield, and some really, really sharp students in the Masters of Environmental Sustainability program at Western. And these students, because of the work of Rachel and Derry, and I was a little bit on the side of it as well, they have done a couple of really important pieces of research for us on invasive species and also valuation of natural features and woodlands. And you'll be hearing more about this later, but we brought them up here for a field tour, and they just had a great time. And they've produced some excellent work, which we're still refining. And that's the kind of synergy I think that we have now with this little Enviro department. And I'm really proud to be part of that. And I'm really pleased to have been here today to update you. And I've got one more picture of our public works crew and their wonderful cement work. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you very much, Dave. And I must commend you for such an interesting presentation, because you certainly had the interest of every person in this room. I'll now open it up to members of County Council for any questions or comments on Dave's presentation. First will be past Warden Ginn, please.
Yeah, Dave, a number of years ago, we rebated or took off the fee for the notice of intent. And for anyone using good forestry practices when they were logging their woodlot, it seems to me that that percentage of people using those practices is going down over time. And I think I don't know if it's still $110. I think it was at that time, but I just wonder if you have any thoughts of how we could bump that back up and get more people. I know the ash problem is part of the problem, but any thoughts on how we can get more people to use good forestry practices?
Sure. Through you, Warden, to Councillor Ginn. There's a number of different approaches. It has kind of plateaued. We had a couple of foresters who were more active a few years ago who retired, and it's partly that there are not a lot of foresters, but it's also a lot of people only sell timber 2 or 3 times in their lifetime, and they don't necessarily think to get outside advice. And there are bylaws, some bylaws that are more restrictive that sort of mandate good forestry practice into the selling of timber. And we've always tried to avoid that, and historically, give people the freedom to market timber how they wish. That is one approach that's been used. I think the approach that we've been using has been somewhat effective. We still waive those fees on notices of intent. I'm not sure how much you would have to raise the fees on a diameter limit notice of intent to affect that percentage. A lot of times those notices of intent are filed by the contractors on behalf of the landowners, and there's a big financial incentive for some contractors to not use good forestry practice because they're able to cut more of what they want, maybe more so than what should be coming out of the bush. So, I mean, I think more promotion of the category under the Clean Water Project would be one way that we could do that. You know, at some point we'll have to review our bylaw and we could discuss options on that at that point. But it is hard for me sometimes when I'm out, just all I do when I go out on commercial logging sites, if everything's compliant with the bylaw, that's all I'm really doing. And I see a lot of landowners who could do a lot better on their timber selling and have a much better woodlot as well. So it's definitely something that I think about a lot, and it's an excellent question.
Thank you very much for that question and response. Past Warden McClellan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to Mike. To follow up on Councillor Ginn's question, can you answer what is the time frame between when you receive a notice of intent until logging actually happens?
Thank you, Warden, to Councillor McClellan. It's a 2-week notice period. So they file the notice and then provide a phone call or an email prior to starting the harvest. So yeah, that's the window on a notice of intent.
All I was wondering was, as you said, a lot of people only do this 2 or 3 times in a lifetime, so they may not understand the advantage of bringing in a professional for their pocketbook and also for the forest itself. Is there any opportunity to actually have a package that as soon as you receive the notice of intent, it doesn't matter if it came from the logger, you have the property. Could we get information to the owner of the property that might make them think, hey, maybe I still should give somebody a call and have a look at this?
I think that's a really good point, Councillor McClellan. It becomes, though, we have to be careful of conflict of interest on something like that because we require that notice and we don't want to impact a deal that's already been done. Part of this, too, is, you know, the challenge of losing all our services with Ministry of Natural Resources in southwestern Ontario. They used to really be good at promoting the value of using foresters, and now we're all kind of on our own as counties in terms of promoting good forest management. But I think those are good ideas, and also promoting more membership in the Huron-Perth Woodlot Association, I think, is really key. It's kind of like the Soil and Crop Improvement Group. It's peer-to-peer learning, and a lot of the people in the Woodlot Association are right up on using foresters and all the benefits of that. So I think there are various approaches we could look at, and possibly we could come back with a bit of a report on that.
Okay, thank you for that. And that just kind of dovetails. Past Warden Ginn, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that staff bring back a report on options for improving the usage of good forestry practices.
Okay, and we have a seconder for that sentiment, and that would be Jay Heffer. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much for that. And thanks very much, Dave. Any further questions or comments from County Council? Councillor Noel, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just want to say, as a new councillor to the county, what an informative morning this has been. And to all 4 presenters, I'd like to say thank you so much for providing such good information to us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Noel. Absolutely. This has been great.
Well adjourned.
Not quite. So, okay, with that, thank you very much, Dave, for this presentation, and to the past ag rep that you alluded to. Please say hi to him from here in County Council. And with that, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to receive this report for information purposes. Jay Heffer and Jay Dietrich. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And thanks again to our presenters this morning. Under Cultural Services, 10.1, the Huron Tract Commemoration Terms of Reference. Beth Rumble is very capable of responding to any questions that any members of County Council may have on this. And if there are no questions, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to receive this report for information purposes and approval of the project terms of reference. And that is Councillor Bazinet and Noel. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much, Beth. Under Administration Policies and Other Issues, the Delegation of Authority for Execution of Government Agreements. Under 11.1, Clerk Cronin, would you care to speak to this as an overview for Huron County Council, please?
I would be delighted. So in the past, I'm going to say about 2 months or so, we've received 6 or 7 last-minute requests for extensions for agreements, funding, etc., with tight deadlines, 7 days, and there's no way we could hit a meeting. We maybe didn't have a meeting. We were lucky enough that they have extended those deadlines for us. The concern is that one time they won't extend it. So the 2 that are actually in the agenda today, one is worth 500,000, I think one is 300,000. So the intent of this is purely to catch a deadline if they won't extend it. It won't be used unless we have to. We will always ask for the deadline to be extended, and there will always be a follow-up report to come back. So council will always be aware of everything that's going on, but it is just, we don't want to lose money if we can at all prevent that. And it will only occur if there is, it will not occur if it costs the county money, only if we're receiving money or we're extending it. If it's within budget, it will never ever happen, okay?
Thank you very much for that overview. Any questions of council on this? It is prudent business, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder to receive the report titled Delegation Authority and with the execution of such, and that it moved by Councillor Finch and Harding. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried, and thank you very much for that, Susan. Sandra is here under 11.2 to respond to any questions that any members of council may have on the strategic priorities chart. Are there any questions of Sandra on this? And if not, I'll entertain a mover and a seconder to receive the report for information purposes titled Strategic Priorities. P. Heffer and Councillor Vanstone. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. 11.3 is the 2023 annual report. I hope that all members of County Council read this. An amazing report. And I will go first to Past Warden McClellan for comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and I agree 100%. Amazing report. And I have a request, and this will be one of the first times I don't even have a suggestion on how to pull it off, but this is such good information, and I understand that, yes, you're going to put it on the county website. To me, that seems a shortcoming. The public needs to know what's in here, and they may not agree with everything that the county does, but this is good information so that they understand a lot of what the county is doing. Is there any other way to make the public aware of this to get the information out to them?
I concur with those comments 100%. I'll defer to Sandra for a comment on this, please.
Yeah, through you, Warden McNeil. Agreed. It's a great report, and it would be great to get that out to more folks. So I think what I can do is discuss with Megan and also with our communications team, Aaron Samuel, to see if there are other avenues to get this out to the public in addition to the county website.
Would that meet your satisfaction? Thanks for bringing this up, Past Warden, and thank you very much for that, Sandra. Councillor Klopp, please.
I guess I'm a little different view on that. If people are concerned, that's part of our job at the local level here. Say what we're doing or not doing. It's on the website. There's a cost to things. I'm hearing from people that, boy, there's a lot of information coming out of the county. How much are we spending? Because we're getting overblown with information. So I see it from another standpoint. Everybody seems to be on internet. We just heard people picking up of congratulations in New Zealand on a trip. I think that I think it's out there. If people want to talk about what we're spending, they'll talk to you, and it's up to us to remind people from time to time. So the report is there, and there's also a cost. And if people really are worried about it, they'll talk to you. So I'm not proposing that we start looking at at more leaflets going out and stuff like that, because if people are interested, they'll talk to you.
Thank you for that perspective. Councillor Basnet, please.
Yeah, I'll agree with Councillor McClellan on this one. Far too often we hear as councillors, at least I do, that we don't get the information. We don't know how to find the information. This is an opportunity for us to develop something to get the information out there in a creative, in an open and transparent way. And sure, it might be on a website, but I'll tell you, a lot of these municipal websites aren't easy to navigate through for people either. So if there's a way that we can create a little more open and transparency, I'm all for it in regards to communication.
Thank you very much for that. Any further questions or comments? Past Warden McClellan, please.
Yeah, and I don't know what the answer would be, but I certainly think it's prudent to ask staff to come back with either recommendation or suggestions of ways that we could possibly disseminate this out to more public. Thank you.
Point well taken.
So I'd like to make that a motion.
Okay, if you would like to make that a motion, it would be seconded by Councillor Bazinet for a staff report on this. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And with that, I would certainly like to thank, on behalf of Huron County Council, all of our dedicated staff for the incredible work that they have done. When we read through this report on all that Huron County has accomplished in 2023, whether it be the housing and homelessness initiatives, inclusiveness, everyone is welcome in Huron County, the service level review and asset management, the workforce attraction and economic readiness, and youth engagement. When we think of the three affordable housing bills that are in progress, the coordinated access system to better address the homelessness situation that everyone is experiencing, the multiple workforce initiatives, the succession planning seminar that our staff did, that was so well received. And I had so many people from outside of Huron County say, how did you ever come up with that idea? And it was our staff that come up with that. And it's so needed and so well received. So on behalf of Huron County Council, I would certainly like to thank our CAO, Megan Wark, the senior management team, and we have an amazing senior management team in Huron County, our 700 staff for executing the strategic priorities of Huron County Council. Thank you very much for that. And I think we all should share in the pride of what we've accomplished with this report. So thank you very much to our staff for that. With that, I will entertain a mover and a seconder to receive the annual report for information purposes, please. Councillor Noel and Councillor Finch. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. We do have a number of correspondence items that are listed. Is there anything that anyone would like to address? And I'll go first to Councillor Finch, please.
Yes, and through you, Warden, thank you. Item number 12.10 and also item number 12.18.
So 1210 is the blue box regulations for ineligible sources, and 1218, the Enbridge gas follow-up. Councillor Vanstone, please. Now, maybe, before I go to you, do we have a seconder for those two? And it would be Councillor McClellan. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Now to Councillor Vanstone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'd like to bring 12.1 or 12.2, they're both the same, and 12.8 if we can.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I do believe we have already supported 12.1 and 12.2, so that has been done. You alluded to Your other number, Councillor Vance, 12.8? The funding for libraries and museums. So you made that a motion. Is there a seconder for that? And it is Councillor Harding. All in favor of this motion? And that is supported. Past Warden McClellan and then Councillor Basnet, please.
Mr. Warden, I don't really need it pulled, but I just did have a question about 1219 when the opportunity comes up. Yeah, so I appreciate this. Appears to be a letter to try and help with our build for the homeless facility. Do we still have any other irons in the fire? Because unfortunately, this one, as of yet, has not panned out for us.
Okay, and with that, I will defer to our CAO for your staff to respond to that, please. Sandra?
Thank you, Warden. I'll just pass that to Director Hall.
Thank you, Barbara.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Warden, we're continuing to source funding for our building. Whenever funding programs become available, we determine if we receive eligibility requirements, and then we'll pursue that. So it's an ongoing process. I know it's being explored in terms of our homelessness prevention dollars. That's not a capital program. We are reaching out, and we've reached out regarding operational supports as well. It's something that we're partnering with another agency as well to seek, for example, operational supports for the supportive pieces for the Gibbons Street project, and that's currently underway as well. So it's something that we're constantly keeping an eye on and applying for whenever it's appropriate and whenever we see programs for which we are eligible.
Okay, thank you for that. Past Warden McClellan, a follow-up, please.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the fact that they're trying to get funding for the programs, because the programs will be an ongoing thing day after day, year after year, where at least once the capital's there, the capital's there. But it's the operational costs afterwards that will amount to more.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you, Director Hall, because I can assure County Council that there are avenues being pursued. Councillor Basnet, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just when Councillor Vanstone brought up some, he wanted to support some correspondence, and then we've already supported them. And I brought this up in the past. I'm just curious, is there a way that we can highlight them on our agenda that we've already supported them, so then we know not to bring them forward again?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. Clerk, please.
Excellent suggestion. Yes, we can. We'll try and do that within the agenda. We'll separate it a little bit, previously supported motions, and that can do until we have the procedure bylaw update.
Thank you, Clerk Cronin.
Yeah, thank you very much for that suggestion of clarity. Absolutely. Anything else that anyone would like to comment on? And if not, I will entertain a mover and a seconder to accept the correspondence not specifically dealt with for information purposes, please. Councillor Anderson and Becker, all in favor of the motion. And that is carried. Thank you very much. If there is any new or unfinished business, I would suggest that they contact the CAO in advance so that it can be published on a future meeting. 13.1 is the notice and extension of long-term care service accountability agreement. Connie Townsend is here to respond to any questions the council may have on the extension of this delegated authority. Are there any questions? Past Warden McClellan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you to Connie. Connie, when I was reading this, I was assuming I maybe knew the answer, but because we are pondering what council's position might be going forward, is that the reason that we're doing this 1-year extension this way, or has this type of step been taken in the past?
This is the, sorry, through you, Mr. Warden, to Councillor McClellan. This is all from the LIN, so it's nothing to do with the report for the homes. It's everyone's LSAW. They just don't want to redo it. They are happy with what was in the current LSAW, and they just want to extend it 1 year.
Good with that? Okay, thank you very much for that. Any further questions of Connie on this? And if not, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to receive this report for information purposes, and that the signed notice and extension of the agreement be forwarded to Ontario West. Councillor Finch moves, seconded by P. Heffer. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much, Connie. Jeff Horseman is here to respond to any questions on 13.2, the Multi-Sector Accountability Agreement Community Paramedic Extended Program Extension. Does anyone have any questions of Jeff on this report? And seeing none, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to receive this report for information, approve the extension, and the execution of the agreement. Councillor Becker and past Warden McClellan. All in favour of the motion? And that again is carried. Thank you very much. Does anyone have a notice of motion they would like to bring forth at this time for a future meeting? Seeing none, we do have a number of bylaws today, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder for the 8 bylaws that are printed to be introduced, be given first, second, and third reading, passed in accordance with the procedural bylaws. Councillor Finch moves, and Councillor P. Heffer seconds. All in favour of the motion, and that is carried. Thank you. At this time, how about we recess for 5 minutes, and we'll return at 10:20, and then we will enter into our closed session. So we are in recess for 6 minutes. Thank you. Good. So with that, I would like to entertain a mover and a seconder that we rise from a close to the public session at 10:52 a.m. Councillor Anderson and Vanstone. All in favour of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. I will now call on Sandra for reporting out of our closed session, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Reporting out of closed session, Council received updates and gave direction on the Homes for the Aged ONA and SCIU contract negotiations.
Thank you very much. And I would also entertain a mover and a seconder that the Council of the County of Huron direct staff to proceed as per direction given in the close to the public session of April 3rd, 2024. Councillor Harding, and a seconder is Councillor Finch. All in favour of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much. I would like to note the upcoming meetings. A week from today would be the Library Board, and that is a hybrid meeting at 57 Napier Street. Our special council meeting a week from tomorrow would be the Huron County Bus Tour. We're at the JMB building at Huron View. And if we could kind of assemble around 8:30, there'd be refreshments there. And how be at 8:45, we would have that tour of the demonstration farm. Of course, we wouldn't be able to walk through the soil. However, we can view the farm. So we'll do that at 8:45 and then board the bus at 9 a.m. Okay? Council Day 2 will be the 17th of April. And a very important meeting that is scheduled is a cybersecurity and AI in municipal government education orientation session. And that will be on Thursday, the 18th of April. It is a completely virtual meeting, and it is shared with Huron County Council and all of the municipalities. So there are 10 partners involved in this. Cybersecurity, I could not ever emphasize enough how important it is that we all be very, very prudent, and this would be an excellent training session. The Economic Development Board will meet on the 25th of April, and Council Day 1 will be the 8th day of May in these council chambers. And I would now entertain a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this meeting. They be introduced, given a first, second, and third reading, and the seal of the corporation and signed by the warden and the clerk be affixed. And that is Councillor Becker and Councillor Finch. All in favour of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you very much to all. and a motion to adjourn at 10:55 a.m. Hands are up, and I would recognize Councillor Jay Dietrich and Jay Heffer that the Council of the Corporation of the County of Huron do hereby adjourn at 10:55 a.m. to meet again on the 17th of April or at the call of the warden and the clerk. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thanks all. Enjoy the rest of your day.